Hey everybody, this is Aaron from Invest in American Engineering, coming at you today with a quick video. I want to show you this little engine I was working on. This is a Duromax 16 horsepower single cylinder gasoline engine. I bought this some time back and I had it sitting on a low shelf in my building, and that shelf gave way. Unfortunately, the engine flipped forward onto its air filter housing and completely shattered the plastic air filter housing that would have went right here. And you can't find parts for this engine, unfortunately. So I found a company on eBay that sells these performance air filter replacements for racing engines on racing go-karts. And I bought one of those in order to have some sort of air filter in order to get this engine back up and running. It comes with this machined aluminum billet. It's an adapter. It's machined out of billet aluminum, and it's an adapter that allows you to hook the air filter to the front of the carburetor. And so it comes with all the gaskets necessary, and the air filter slides on there, and there's a worm gear pipe clamp that allows you to tighten that air filter on. One of the issues I ran into, though, is that this racing air filter isn't actually designed for this engine, and so the carburetor studs were too short. I contacted the eBay company and that sold the air filter, and they were able to send me a longer carburetor stud, but even their longest carburetor stud was too short, and so I actually had to draw one up on CAD, and I submitted it to a machine shop who made me a stud that was just long enough to thread through the carburetor. And so now that I got that attached and all the pieces in line, all of the carburetor and the adapter block, and I have everything hooked back up, I can attach this air filter with no issues. The only problem with this air filter is that it isn't designed for the PCV system. That's positive crankcase ventilation, and so coming out of the aluminum, or that might be stamped steel, coming out of the valve cover there's a hole where this tube goes, and this tube is just a crankcase vent, and it normally comes out and goes into the air filter housing, where the air filter housing is under a slight vacuum when the engine's running. And so any combustion gases that slip past and go into the crankcase will be siphoned out. The problem is that this new air filter just leaves this unattached. And also there is a tube here. It's a vacuum hose that goes into the top of the gas tank. Not 100% sure what this one's for. You don't want to pull a vacuum on your gas tank. It'll starve your carburetor for gasoline. And so imagine this this block up here has some sort of check valve that keeps it from pulling such a vacuum that it's going to starve the engine. It must be some sort of gas vent somehow, but it also originally went into the old air filter housing, so it was a vacuum line. I'm going to show you today how we can make this work with a couple of parts. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to drill a hole in the rubber air filter here, enough to put this adapter piece that I bought, and this is actually for a PCV. It's a rubber boot for a PCV valve on an actual car. I bought this at the auto parts store, and I'm gonna drill a hole to put this in and then attach this hose, and I'll come back at you when I have that hole drilled so you can see how it goes together. So give me just a minute to do that. Alright, so I'm back. I drilled a hole in the top of this air filter, and I also reinstalled the air filter onto the aluminum adapter. And I wanted to talk about the importance of keeping this hose connected. So like I said, this is a PCV hose. It is positive crankcase ventilation. The original engine has it set up, and this is not just for people who, like me, who accidentally broke the engine's air filter housing. This is for people, I see online a lot of people buy these engines and put these air filters and other parts on there to make them high performance for, put high performance parts on there for like racing go-karts. And these air filters do not include any way to keep that PCV connected. And so it's very important to keep this hooked up. A lot of people I see online, they just cap it off. It's not a good thing for the engine. There's a few issues with that. If the engine was originally designed to have it, there is a reason. The first issue is, as the engine's running, the piston's moving up and down inside the cylinder, it displaces air on the crankcase side of the piston, and so that air has to be able to move somewhere. And so if it was just capped off or sealed, you have an issue where now if it's capped off, now you could build up pressure inside the engine that could cause your seals to have issues later on. You might start leaking oil or other issues like that. Another problem with this is the piston rings are not perfect on any engine. There's a little bit of crankcase blow-by, I think it's called, where a little bit of the combustion gases seep through into the back of the crankcase, and you want to be able to siphon those off. And you do not want to vent those to the atmosphere either. The EPA regulates that. It's not good for the environment for those combustion gases to escape. And so they mandate that you pull a vacuum on the crankcase so that those combustion gases will get filtered back into the air filter housing, and will basically run through the system again and run through combustion again. And there's other issues for not connecting this. We need to keep this connected. And so anyway, I drilled a hole, and the hole is just smaller. In an ideal scenario, this is the way you'd want it. That hole is just smaller than that 90-degree rubber boot that I'm going to install. That way, it's a bit of a press fit. You have to force that rubber 90-degree boot into that hole. Now rubber is soft. It will allow you to do it. The rubber here will displace, but because of it being a larger shaft and a smaller hole, basically a press fit we call that, it will set up a situation where this rubber will form a tight seal. And that's good for a vacuum system. You don't want any outside unfiltered, because this is on the back side of the air filter, and so anything that seeps past that will go into the engine unfiltered. And so this will form a tight seal so nothing external can get in. Alright, so I'm going to put this rubber boot back on, and I'm going to come back at you when I have everything installed, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, I apologize, my neighbor in the background is mowing his grass, if you can hear that. I took the red sock off of the air filter just so you could see a little bit more clearly. So I have that rubber boot installed inside the hole that I drilled, and then of course I purposely picked that rubber boot so that the original PCV hose will fit correctly inside. And so I have that routed. It looks really good, looks professional, and now this engine has a restored vacuum line there, so I don't have to worry about seals leaking in the future or the combustion gases escaping to the atmosphere. And so this is the proper way to do something like this, and I'm sure that someone out there could probably come up with a more elegant way to do this, but this was a good fix. It was very quick. It just required some drill bits and a drill. Wasn't very hard at all. And whenever it's time to replace this air filter, you have to take this entire air filter off. I'll just re-drill the hole and be ready for the new air filter. So I'm going to drill another hole here in a minute for this other vacuum line that goes onto the top of the gas tank, and then this engine will be fixed. So if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know through a personal message or comment, and I'll see if I can answer a few questions for you. If you have any questions about how this is done or the effects of that vent on the engine, just let me know. And please subscribe.